Welcome back. You are watching Vanquish Gaming, our first ever 2v2 season. This is game 2 of Kid and the Business versus Diener and bnasty. And map 2, of course, selected by the losers of game 1, which was surprisingly Kid and the Business, favored to win by pretty big margin. These two teams got completely blindsided by a 5.5-minute rush they did not see coming. Took advantage of Kid's typical opening style, which involves early expansions and a little bit of early vulnerability. We see here over here on the east side of the map, we have bnasty and Diener, Terran player and Protoss alike. And this is Scorched Haven, a semi-shared base map. We see these two ramps kind of funneling into these naturals, and a very large section, very difficult to wall off. Looks like Diener's going to go ahead and bnasty will go ahead and help him as well. We have Kid rolling out with a early probe, does not want to get caught with his pants down this time. And we have the Business just going with his typical just probing up here. And not much action on Kid's front either. We'll have to see if Kid decides to expand early like he did last time, and if bnasty and Diener will let him. See Kid just going in uncontested into Diener's base. He's going to go ahead and take a look. A few notes on these main bases here on Scorched Haven. Very large area, very susceptible to drops, sometimes a very common practice for Kid, and also very, very susceptible to blink stalker harassment, which is also a very solid staple for the Business. So I can see why they chose the map. It'll just be interesting to see if they can defend another early rush, and I can't see any reason why bnasty and Diener would not attempt another early rush, considering how incredibly successful it was the first time. And this being a best-of-3 series, this means that Kid and the Business must win this game. It's elimination threat. You see Diener's scout coming in here. You see the hot routes already set up. He's going to go ahead and find a few pylons, a cybernetics core, and gateway. See a gateway coming up for Kid. Still nothing on the expansion. I don't know if he's thinking about it, but definitely something that's going to tempt him. See Diener with very tight barracks here. Very, very tight. Looks like he just has enough room maybe for this one for an attachment. It's going to be very, very close though. Definitely very tight here. He's going to have to use this supply depot probably to get through. Well, he probably has enough room there to rally out. See Diener going for what looks like a Zelnaga, and came up a little short. And we see Kid go ahead and going for the gas and cybernetics core early, and still probing up. Looks like he will not expand as fast as he did last game, which is definitely a lesson learned after he got completely blindsided. See warp gates coming up now, and see if the Business is able to get a chance to roll out his stalker machine. The Business loves to use blink stalkers. He's one of the best in the Vanquish Gaming League with stalker play, and we've seen him evolve from surprisingly a Terran player, and now is probably one of the premier stalker Protoss players that we have. Gateway units all around are just his forte. We'll have to see how that plays out here. So far, no early harassment. We're at the 4.5-minute mark. We see a similar build here. We see one defensive bunker. We see a couple of gateways and a couple of barracks here. We do not see the proxy from bnasty as we did last time. Also a little surprising considering that this very large extension here on the main is a little bit susceptible to proxies. But he didn't even send a probe out to really scan, and we see a Kid thinking about it. He's thinking about it. Do I go for it? Do I not go for it? He's got 2 zealots. Let's see, the Business hasn't really started warping anything in yet. He usually gets a late start, and Kid's going to go for it. He says, you know what, it's 5.5 minutes, almost like clockwork on the clock. He says, all right, I'm going to go ahead and try this expansion, see what they do. He's got a robotics facility coming out, most likely for Colossi. Kid, a huge fan of Colossi, loves the Death Ball, and we'll have to see if we get some Death Ball action here. It looks like bnasty and Diener are definitely playing a more conservative game, just kind of hanging back. We see Diener starting to get some eyes on his very large main base, bnasty just relying on Lady Luck. And we see 2 expansions going down for Diener and bnasty. Definitely some macro play from them. It's not their normal forte. Usually Diener, a little bit of a harasser, a little bit of a macro, but bnasty usually pure harassment. So it's very surprising. He's almost mirroring Kid with a robotics facility. It'd be very interesting to see how this plays out. But a very unusual play. The Business at this point, the only person not expanding. Oh, and just as I say that, the Business goes ahead and throws down a Nexus. So we do see a little bit of chase the worker, as Diener gets chased off that Zelnaga tower and will lead this probe from Kid into its certain death. of marine gunfire. And there it goes. So meanwhile, back at Diener's expansion, we see some mules coming down. We see Tech Lab, Tech Lab, Tech Lab. We see 3 Tech Labs. Looks like heavy Marauder, most likely in anticipation for a Stalker Ball. Marauders, of course, very effective against Blink Stalkers, unless, of course, the Blink Stalkers blink directly into the mass, and then it's a numbers game. So definitely want to try to take advantage of the extra range on the Marauder to try and slow down those Stalkers and make the blink maybe a little less effective. It's really hard to counter Blink Stalkers from blinking in on you like that. You just kind of have to split up your forces and hope for the best. But we'll see if it ever gets to that point. We definitely see a split here of units. It looks like the Business going for his typical Stalkers. Kid, however, going for Zealots and Immortals, which will definitely be very effective against anything armored, including those Marauders. And we do see a robotics facility coming up. That will definitely mean that we have Colossi on the map. Let's go ahead and take a look at the income tab. Looks pretty dead even. You see the probe count slightly in favor of the Business, but otherwise fairly tight across the board. A little low on gas for bnasty. And we've got a nice group of units here building up. We have bnasty with an observer, 2 observers now it looks like. That's a lot of observers, and a 3rd observer coming out. So a little voyeurism from bnasty, I guess. Never hurt anybody. If you ever wondered where he got the name, now you know. So we do have an equally large ball over here from Kid and the Business. It looks like the Business is now going to start mining from that expansion, which will definitely put this Stalker production facility into high gear. And we see the Business going down for a 3rd base. I guess trying to make up for maybe his late expansion, but the Business going for a very greedy 3rd. A little unusual for the Business. He's usually a little bit more conservative on the resources, especially since he's just gateway units, but very surprising. Looks like Kid is going to follow suit and take the last of, well, a semi-natural base up here in the northern corner. And I guess they're taking a key from the lack of activity from bnasty and Diener. They're just going to kind of, fine, you're going to let us sit? We're going to basically play this out like Zergs then. We're going to just expand and try to take over the whole map. And considering that bnasty has not really used these observers for much other than his own base, he does not really know what's going on. We see here 3 Stalkers from the Business poking in on bnasty's side of the wall. It's going to try to bait him out. Unfortunately, he's a little outnumbered, and they will try to take out... Oh, and they do snipe one of the Stalkers going down. These 2 Stalkers trying to avenge the death, and they're desperately trying to escape now. Looks like they're going to continue to harass, try to steal some very precious micro away. And oh, just barely blinks out. The Business showing off some very fancy blink skills as he saves those last 2 Stalkers so they can go ahead and continue scouting out the map. See the Business now starting to build some more probes, starting to build up his count. Go ahead and take out the resource tab. We now see Kid falling behind from the Business. A big change there, as Kid is usually so obsessed with minerals and resources and just expanding in general. It's just a very classic macro player all around. We do see Colossi now on the map. That is going to spell a big problem for bnasty, as he's going to need some kind of Colossi out as well if he wants to do anything. And here he goes with his Colossi, just a few minutes late. If that costs him, we'll have to see how fast these Colossi are put in play. Range upgrade is complete. We do have map control in favor of Kid and the Business, as they basically have half the map under their control. No eyes on the center path, however, and we do see a ghost on the field now for Diener. EMP will be very useful against dual Protoss, as that will evaporate most of the shields, especially for gateway units. Unfortunately, this ghost forgot to cloak himself, takes a little bit of damage, and now he's going to go ahead and try to snipe these units to death. That will take a while. And yep, really long time to snipe all those. Alright, so back at the base we see nice big ball. I'm kind of wondering what they're waiting for though. You know, Kid and the Business, they've gone for ultra macro here, taking up all these bases. So I get it. I get why they're hanging back. Their army is significantly smaller here. But this is really prime time right now for bnasty and Diener, and kind of a staple from the first game. We saw that they really didn't scout outside of the beginning. They didn't really know what was going on inside the base. Thankfully, it became a moot point once they did their early rush. But at this point, we're at 13 minutes. They have no idea what's going on over there. For all they know, there's a fleet of carriers waiting for them, and this is just very, very dangerous. You do not want to let a macro player sit back, and that's exactly what they're doing. They're letting Kid play his game, something they stole from him in the first game, and they're making a mistake. And to be honest, I'm not really sure why they have opted not to play that game again because it was so effective, the early rush against Kid. That scan did find the business's satellite base here, and these 3 stalkers are about to be met with a whole lot of stalker, marine marauder, immortal mess, and it is not going to end well for them. We see the battle ensue. Looks like Diener also brought an SUV just to kind of hang out and repair, and it's very generous of him. He might be going for an achievement that I don't know about, but you know, he's definitely looking to score some points on the achievement board for being a best friend here. So he's a SUV even helping out attacking. Look at that. He might be a mascot for all I know, but I'm gonna go ahead and guess that he just mismacroed it. The business, not to be let down by that attack, is gonna go ahead and spend this ridiculous resource count and go for the gold. Those unspent resources are really going to start to hurt the business, as he really needs to try and get those out. You see Kid doing a much better job spending that money, putting it to work. You know, you want to play StarCraft like you're at the strip club. All right, you got to make it rain. And you don't make it rain with money, you make it rain with units. If you're holding on to your money, it's not going to go well. That money is best put to use for units. They have to have on the map, especially with build times, warp gates. I mean, all these warp gates, I mean, the business could easily afford to have another 6 warp gates and just be warping out nothing but stalkers. We do see him going for more resources, even though he really doesn't need them. He is supply block, though, so I'd like to see some pylons coming down. That may be one of the reasons why he's not building up. And we see the Kid in full swing here. Let's take a look at the income tab. We really see Diener and bnasty. Well, bnasty's hanging in there, but Diener's really starting to fall behind. Only 39 workers. You see Kid at 65. He's really putting it on strong there. And just see this enormous ball here, and this almost takes me back to the old StarCraft 1 days, where you saw a lot of people, obviously not at the pro level, but a lot of people in custom games would just mass up these enormous armies, and somewhere around the 25-minute mark, everyone hits, you know, their supply caps, and they march in with a huge army, and it's almost like Crazy Eights. Everyone throws down their cards, and you got to see what everyone got, you know. And I just don't see that working out for them, because unfortunately the business and Kid are just much better at the waiting game than bnasty and Diener. Their game has always been harassment. They need to try and stay with that, and right now they've essentially, for no reason at all, abandoned an early rush strategy to try and beat Kid in the business at their own game, and it just doesn't make sense. So now they're rolling out, and now we'll finally find out the answer to see if they can do this. We do have a couple of Vikings, which will help out with the Colossi threat. Kid does have a few more Colossi. You see them taking a pit stop to take out this gold, tipping their hand that they are on the way. We're going to need more Vikings, though, since they are a little outnumbered on the Colossi. Those Vikings with the extra range, really effective against Colossi. One of the best answers Terran has against it, but with an MM ball, you really want to be careful. There's quite a few stalkers here, but it doesn't look like he has enough. It's really tough to call this. Technically, in an open field, I'd say Diener and bnasty have the advantage with this army, especially if they can get a few more Vikings in here, but it really depends on how they engage. These blink stalkers can be very dangerous, blinking in, blinking out, causing a flank, splitting fire, and we do see business going in for a sneak attack. He just blinked in to bnasty's base. bnasty desperately trying to warp in some stalkers to defend. We see the Colossi coming up to help out. They're going to go ahead and take out the rest of the business's warped in units here, and we see Kid going with a simultaneous warp in of Zealots going for that mineral line. And we see the Vikings desperately coming in here trying to clean out that warp prism, and they're able to save most of bnasty's workers, but a nice surprise attack. We see more stalkers blinking in from the business, and you know, it almost seems like now the business is getting impatient. He's going to go ahead and start some harassment of his own, and Kid just following suit. And looks like bnasty's going to rely on his economy and just massive amounts of warp gates here to just brute force this. And oh, that early pylon being taken out, got taken out early enough to stop 2 stalkers from warping in. Very dangerous for them. And this is not looking good at all, as it looks like these 2 stalkers will be able to fight off bnasty stalkers, and he's going to have to keep warping in units. He goes for some cannons for defense, just totally sick of it at this point. Oh, only gets 2 of them down. Some more stalkers warping in, and we see the huge mass of units here from bnasty and Diener, and they're finally going to clean out the business, and they're going to go back and take this expansion now for a second time. Looks like they are very pissed off, and they're just they do not want any harassment here. They were kind enough to let Kid and the business build up, and they just want to be allowed to essentially do a nice gentleman's standoff, army versus army. Unfortunately, Well, fortunately for Kid and the business, those harassment attacks delayed this attack, and even though they were able to get some more Vikings, it did allow for more Colossi from Kid and more Stalkers from the business. And this is going to be interesting. This could be very bad. You do not have good positioning here. bnasty and Diener really need to try and lure these out. They got some good shots on those Stalkers, but they need to try and engage this in an open field. And oh no, it looks like these Blink Stalkers might be able to get behind them. And they're rolling in here. Colossi versus Colossi. Vikings take them down. And there's the Blink. The business with a perfect flank. Just coming in completely behind, forcing the army to split its fire. And oh my goodness, the entire army just gets completely swallowed up by the Stalker ball. These Vikings are the only thing left. And they are essentially escape pods as they try to run back in complete terror. Will he make it? Oh, and the last Viking goes down. And that is unbelievable. Complete expert Stalker play there from the business as he warped in right behind and completely took out the backside of that army. And you see here, we do have some action. The Kid, in the meantime, taking advantage of that flank, sent in some Zealots. Diener able to lift off a few buildings, but it looks like he did lose a few. And those Stalkers finally go down. I'm sorry, those Zealots finally go down. And so much action in this game. We finally see the counterattack now from Kid and the business rolling in. And they do not have eyes on it. Diener with a few Marauders, but it's not going to be anywhere near enough. And the coordinated attacks here between Kid and the business have just completely just flabbergasted Diener and bnasty, as not only were they able to flank them, but they were able to out-harass them and do simultaneous attacks. Diener with the GG, admitting defeat, and this will definitely go to a Game 3 at this point. And just what a shocking turn of events, as Diener and bnasty gave up what was arguably the best strategy they had against the heavily favored team of the business and Kid, and then essentially tried to out-macro them, which is a very dangerous game with Kid. He is just too good at the macro, and the business just with that expert blink play, just coming in and flanking, splitting that army's fire, they were able to defeat what could have been essentially a much greater force. Just a bad engagement choice on bnasty and Diener. We'll have to see what happens in what will probably be a very exciting Game 3.